Hey everyone, I'm Michelle. On my episodes, I talk about my fitness and lifestyle journey and the journey of my community. If you like to follow along for more, you can follow at Instagram at Bulb Online Studio or Facebook, Be Active Online Studio. Hi everyone, thanks so much for tuning in again to another episode. Today I'm going to be talking to Emily Polak. She is the founder of Maternal Health Niagara and a registered social worker. So Emily's clinical focus is infertility, pregnancy loss, pregnancy, birth trauma, postpartum anxiety, and postpartum depression. She coaches women through mom guilt and managing the mental load of motherhood. I think we can all agree that the stress of motherhood has increased due to the pandemic, and some days are harder than even ever to parent. I'm looking forward to hearing Emily's suggestions on how to navigate the stressors better and get some good tips for myself and our community. So thank you so much, Emily, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. This is really exciting to have these conversations.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions and we'll just kind of go back and forth and give us your honest answers. So can you share a bit about yourself?
All right. Yeah. So I would say I've always been a social worker at heart, starting at a really young age. And so I ended up getting my master's degree and practiced in an agency setting. And then it was from my own journey into motherhood that I really recognized there was this huge gap in services and really supporting women, supporting people through pregnancy. And I ended up having hyperemesis, which is like what Princess Kate had. So with my first, I was sick, but I had no idea what would come in subsequent pregnancies. And so I had a miscarriage in between, which within itself, I had no idea how to kind of cope through that because nobody talked about it. So I felt really kind of alone and didn't know what to do. And then my pregnancy after that with my youngest, it was a much wanted pregnancy. After having had a miscarriage, but I was so sick with hyperemesis and the focus was really on my baby and no one was really checking in with, how are you doing, Emily? Like I had a PICC line, I'd lost 20% of my body weight and I was just deteriorating so quickly, physically and emotionally. And so I ended up, thank goodness I had the natural resources in me being a social worker that I navigated the system and getting supports in place for me. And so it's really from that lived experience and, my own motherhood journey that I decided, you know what, I got to do something about this. I have my master's degree, but this is a gap. And so I hit the books. I took all of these advanced training and really became specialized in perinatal mental health. So, it's the journey of motherhood and then my professional background that has really made Maternal Health Niagara. And it's my other baby. It really has. It's become my other baby.
Wow,
is supporting families and women.
That's amazing. You're right. You just hit it on the nail. Like, even with my business, it stemmed from, my pregnancies, just wanting to help other moms not go through what I went through, right? With the teenage eating disorder. And it was through my second pregnancy as well that the birth of Be Active Better became what it is today. Not wanting other moms to go through what I went through, but I also suffered postpartum depression. And you're right, the focus was on the baby. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to navigate my feelings. And I just put it into my passion, which I'm very thankful for. But again, it's something that you're right. It's just, if you don't have those resources and you don't know where to find them, you're really lost.
Totally.
So this is why I guess you opened Maternal Health Niagara. So is it just you in your practice?
No. So, well, it started with just me, but I had this vision of building a circle of support because that's what I ended up using. But my circle of support, I had it like in all of these different places. And so my continued vision, it's not done where I'm at right now, has been to have services under one roof, and that everybody that works at Maternal Health Niagara can adhere to maternal mental health, trauma-informed care. And so that it's a place where everyone can come and feel comfortable and have their needs met. So I have a pelvic floor physiotherapist on our team. The American Academy of Gynecologists talk about the recommendation of postpartum. Everybody should have pelvic floor support and mental health. Yet we don't really do a great job at doing that. We also have a team of social workers, and then we have a registered nurse on our team, and she focuses a lot on breastfeeding. She's a lactation consultant, baby-led sleep support, kind of parenting, developmental questions that parents have around their kids. So that's what the team is right now. And, hopefully after this pandemic, we just keep on growing.
That's amazing. Amazing. It's no secret that the lockdowns have added so much stress, for parents, for kids. On one hand, even myself, we want to keep our community safe. But on the other hand, the attitudes of parenthood, virtual school, just being good at everything, is overwhelming at times. What would you say? Do you think this is normal? Is it a normal feeling to have these overwhelming stressors?
Absolutely. I would say, even in terms of the phone calls and the referrals that I'm getting right now, is that people are feeling pulled in so many directions. And if we look at, even kind of historically how we have lived in society, back in the day before we were all in our own independent homes and dwellings, that we really lived in a very community-based setting. And when we lived in that community-based setting, for example, women would support women. So if someone was having, difficulty with breastfeeding back in the day, another mom would step up and feed the baby. Or if a mom was tired, someone else in that community, auntie would take the baby and mom would get rest. And so we had, a different circle of support back then. And now our society has really kind of transformed into very, nuclear family setting, which then puts added pressures and stress on families. And so that circle of support right now looks so different because we're asked to stay within our nuclear family setting, right? So even with people that maybe had other extended support circle before, it looks different, right? And we have set this really high expectation around what motherhood is anyways. Prior to pandemic, I'm seeing women struggling with being the perfect mom, but it's not the perfect mom. It's just doing enough, being good enough, right? And so all of these factors that are coming in right now are really adding to the mental load, and people are struggling with, how do we navigate this and how do we do this?
Wow. You definitely, that's exactly how I feel. And I feel like, my community as well. It's just, there's so much going on that I feel like, even as myself, as a mom, as a wife, as a daughter, I feel like I'm being lost. There's a totem pole, I'm going lower and lower. And some days, even though you just want to be mediocre, you just want to show up, it's getting very, very difficult. So what do you think are tips for parents on how to manage these stressors? What are some things that we can do?
Totally. So I think, first of all, we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs is this big kind of psychology language, but it's really about starting with our basic needs, right? And our basic needs are usually the first needs that we lose, right? Whether that's sleep, whether that's, remembering to eat, you feed your kids, but how many times do people skip their own meal and, not stay hydrated or drink enough, or fresh air, getting outside, or exercise and movement? And so to be able to kind of work through that hierarchy of needs until we're meeting our basic needs, some of those emotional security, safety, those needs may not be met until we're making sure we're caring for ourselves in the foundational setting. Right. Yeah. And so when moms are being pulled in or families, it's not just moms, dads are, or two parent families are really being pulled in lots of directions, single parents. Right. And so my recommendations are go back to the basics, right? Are you able to make sure that you're maintaining your sleep hygiene? Are you getting your rest, right? Are you able to make sure that you're taking it easy with meals, right? So this might not be a time where you're making a gourmet meal or having this over the top, but it's simple and easy and doable, right? Making sure that you have easy snacks on hand for yourself, and that we still want to support each other. We still want to use our circle of support. So how do we do that? Well, those practical pieces, it could be asking a neighbor or your mother-in-law or your mom, I love it when you make lasagna. Can you make some, drop it off? And so we can still access some of those really important people in our life. It just looks differently, right? And having the emotional conversations as well of how you're feeling. And it's okay to not be okay, but we got to talk about it. And when we are doing well as the parent, then that helps us help our kids emotionally regulate. It helps our kids' emotional mental health. And so when we're struggling, our family's struggling, it's not just about the kids, but it's also about the parents. We have to look at that as a whole picture, right? So if you're feeling torn in every direction, give yourself the permission to take care of yourself too, because when you honor that, you're also modeling that for your kids too.
Awesome.
Right?
Those are great tips. I mean, and I know you deal with, the motherhood and parent, but you're right. Like even my boys, if they see me down or if I'm having a low day, I notice it transfers, right? Or it transfers to them, and the energy around everybody is low. It's just like, you're right. Just start at the basics. It's hard to put into practice that because sometimes you think like, in my field per se, where it's like, oh, we have to have fruits and vegetables and this and that, and you have to have your protein. But you're right. If they miss a few days of having, all the food groups, are they fed? Right? Like just go to the primary. Are they fed?
Right.
Awesome.
And just keeping it simple. Keep it simple. Be realistic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. What are realistic expectations?
Now, for new moms, okay? So in my community, I have new moms. I have moms of all different, stages in their life. What are some virtual programs? Like I feel for the moms that are pregnant right now, that, it looks a lot different, right? I used to have stroller classes. I used to have, moms coming together and, yes, we would do fitness and, work on their strength, but I feel like it was more of a community. And although I've built an amazing virtual community where we do talk, we ask the questions, but do you have any virtual programs or know of any that, new moms or postpartum moms can take advantage of?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you're talking about right there is the essence of the circle of support, right? And how do you access that support? And we were talking a little bit before we came on here around how we've all had to shift gears to virtual and how that's really been a learning curve, but that it's been a way for us to connect, right? I think about my grandfather, who was a prisoner of war in World War II, and they didn't have the internet. They didn't have the phones to be able to call. And so, appreciating some gratitude, I carry that gratitude of technology and how advanced we are now. And so there are other providers and people now that are offering that virtual support. And so, I'm running a postpartum maternal mental health group. I know we have some other providers here in Niagara that are also doing that. So there's like Strive Niagara that offers free pregnancy and postpartum meetups where they just chat. There's also Life with a Baby, which is another organization that is really led by volunteers of connecting. It's finding your community. It's finding that in ways that it could just be for this season. It may not be something that's going to be a lifetime for you in going to some of these groups, but if it's going to serve a purpose for you in the here and now, do it. I saw, Michelle, you're running a kids group of fitness. Like that's awesome for them to have an opportunity and have movement and stress relief, right? And that's just so important that we're accessing these different parts. So
Awesome. I like that. The here and now, right? Like just live day to day in the here and now. And it doesn't have to be a permanent thing. It's just a time and place. I like that.
Totally.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of, it's a question I've always had. Like I've shared, I did have postpartum depression with my second son. Now, I just wasn't clear. Like, for someone that suffered postpartum depression, it's always a worry in the back of my head. I know my child's 8 years old now. But, those feelings, I always get worried if they do come back. Is it normal to have some sort of post-traumatic postpartum depression?
100%.
Okay.
So let me share a little bit about maternal mental health. So we don't talk about this, but perinatal. So perinatal is the term that we're using, which is really encompassing pregnancy and postpartum period.
Okay.
Perinatal mood disorders, so anxiety and depression, are the leading pregnancy and postpartum complication. It's leading more than gestational diabetes, more than preeclampsia, more than all of those things, right? But meanwhile, we go to our prenatal visits and there's a lot of screening around how you're doing, how's baby doing, and we don't really do a great job at checking in with moms and families around how they're doing. 1 in 5 women experience a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder. 1 in 5, that's really profound. And 1 in 10 dads. And so if we look at best practice would be that we're screening someone in each trimester of pregnancy. And then to correlate with each well baby visit, we're checking with mom. But what is our system set up as? You're sick, your vagina's healed, it's 6 weeks, maybe your C-section recovery is just healed. See you later, goodbye. You're on your own, right? And then it continues to focus on baby. And so we really have to change that so that it's dyadic. And so when we aren't asking these questions and when we aren't screening people, then people get missed. People fall through the cracks. People don't know what to do with their mental health, right? And so when someone hasn't had that support through it, it can be really triggering. You can almost have, like you talked about, PTSD. So that's post-traumatic trauma from having postpartum anxiety or depression, right? And so, birthdays can be a really big trigger for people that have been through that because it reminds them of birthing their child. And then it brings back what that first year was like. And so, my acknowledgement in this is that it's real. It happens. We need to keep talking about it. Nobody did anything wrong. Like here I am. I'm a social worker. I grew up with learning about mental health and all of those pieces. And I had postpartum anxiety, right? And no one's immune to it, but it's okay to reach out and ask for help. And that's really one of my goals too, that, I love doing talks like you're doing, Michelle, because it's building community capacity. It's giving people permission to say, hey, that was my experience. And when we say that, then we can build up from that.
Yeah. And I find that very powerful. It took me, I would say, many years to just open up, because I think there is a stigma. Everyone thinks you got it going on. And, what I love about our community as well is that we ask the questions that don't feel right. And when you would never just say to anyone, virtual does have some silver linings. It allows people to feel a sense of comfort in their own space to share a story. And that's why I want these conversations to keep going. We just had, Bell, Let's Talk and, mental health awareness. Like we have to keep going. We have to say that even though your child is, in elementary school, they're 8, they're 10, you can still have those feelings. And, just having you validate that is completely normal makes me feel like, okay, it is normal, right? Because we kind of bury it. Well, in my experience. It was there. It was a time and I got over it. But sometimes I feel like, can it come back? A lot of stressors going on. I feel the anxiety building and then we want to bury it, but my hope from this conversation is that other moms can say, you know what? It's there and we just need to work on it every day. So getting the tips and the tools to give them to work at it every day. I don't think it ever goes away. I just think that we just navigate it differently.
Totally. And, if we really look at, our generation and the generations before that, how did we deal with emotions? How did we build emotional IQ? We didn't really do a great job of it. Like I can tell you if, someone was having a hard time in the classroom, you're sent out in the hall to stand in the corner.
Yeah.
Right. Or it's kind of that authoritative parenting. You do as I say. And what we are knowing and learning now, like schools are building in zones of regulation. They're building in meditation in school. They're building in yoga. They're building in, all of this really cool emotional IQ. They're building in how do we deal with feelings. And so you see that trend now happening with parents. I'm seeing a lot more parents that are wanting to build and connect with their kids, repair when they've been upset. But we got to be real too, that this is also a learning curve for us as parents, because that really wasn't the foundation of our own early childhood and development. And so we're learning to regulate and do this work with our kids. And so being gentler and kinder with ourselves around, oh man, I just yelled at my child and that felt really awful and I didn't mean to do that. Well, then let's like check in with ourselves too. Yeah. And give ourselves the permission to take the space or the deep breath or reset and be real about it. Yeah. It's okay to say to your kids, I'm sorry. I just went in the red zone. I'm so sorry. I needed to take a breath there. And when we model that to our kids, it gives them permission to use those tools too.
Yeah, I love that. I've been doing that a lot more too, right? Just, giving myself permission to say I'm sorry, because when I grew up, that never happened, and that's okay. I always say, like, you only did what you could at the time, right? With the resources you had. And sometimes, in my culture, it's a sign of weakness. Like, don't tell your kids you're sorry. But in the way I want to raise my kids is to allow them to say, I'm human. I over-yelled, I overstepped. I want you to know I'm sorry, because I hope that it does translate to them that when they do make a mistake, they can come to me and say, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Right? Because I think, like you said, just give permission. And I think it makes us human. I really do. Okay. So this is totally unrelated, but I thought let's just break it up with some fun. What is your favorite thing to do to de-stress?
Oh my goodness. So pre-pandemic would have looked different than where I'm at right now. Yeah. So I'll tell you what I do now. So, I've always loved going for walks. So walks is something that's really nice and refreshing for me, but I've actually gotten into puzzles. I hated puzzles before, but it ended up just being like a really nice way to just check out, zone in on the puzzle, and it brings you in the moment. It's a mindfulness activity. I also started like crafting and making little doll houses. Sounds funny. It wouldn't normally be my thing, but it's finding your thing.
I heard about it.
It's like finding your thing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's fun because you are putting together this kit and you're really focused on it in the moment. Yeah. Right. Like, and that's what our nervous system needs. Our nervous system needs to come down and down regulate by being present in our body. Right. Or doing more breath work. I've been doing more just like, right? I even do it in sessions with clients. We do a lot of that breath work of co-regulation. So yeah, those are and of course I have my coffee in the morning and I keep my silk hazelnut 3 deep, at least in my fridge, because there was a drought one time and I couldn't go without it. So, you just find what brings you joy. Yeah, my coffee is my joy.
That's awesome. Awesome. Okay. So lastly, if someone wanted to reach out, book an appointment, how would they go about doing that?
they can check us out at Maternal Health Niagara. We're on the internet, and there's a form there that you can submit. Right now, we have a wait list for our maternal mental health services, but we are running the groups, and that's open. And our pelvic floor physio is accepting clients right now. She starts virtually and then sometimes offers in person. And then Camilla is still providing the lactation and baby-led sleep support. So check us out at Maternal Health Niagara.
I'm going to put all your contact information up, but I want to thank you again, Emily, for coming on today and giving us some insight into what it looks like and how to navigate the stressors of pandemic and just parenthood in general. So I really want to thank you so much, and it was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. If you want to follow along for more fitness and lifestyle tips, you can follow me on Instagram at Bob Online Studio or Facebook, Be Active Online Studio. Thanks for tuning in.